The pregnancy test slipped from my trembling fingers and shattered against the bathroom tile. Not mine but my 17-year-old daughter's, hidden in the trash beneath wadded tissues. I stood frozen in her bathroom, 45 years old, my world collapsing, when I heard the front door open downstairs. My husband had been dead for 3 years. My daughter was at school. Someone was in my house. I grabbed the scissors from the vanity, my heart slamming against my ribs. The footsteps were heavy, deliberate, moving through my kitchen. I'd survived losing Michael to cancer, survived raising Emma alone, survived the crushing loneliness that followed. I wasn't about to become a headline. But as I crept down the stairs, scissors raised, I saw grocery bags on my counter and a broad-shouldered figure with his back to me, putting my milk in the refrigerator. "Mrs. Weston, your ice cream was melting, so I—" He turned and I nearly dropped my weapon. Daniel Morrison. The neighbor's son. 28 years old, with eyes the color of storm clouds and a jaw that could cut glass. He'd been gone for 7 years, military I'd heard, then some government job nobody talked about. "Were you planning to stab me with craft scissors?" I lowered my hand, heat flooding my cheeks. "I didn't know anyone was here. The door was locked. Your spare key is still under the same fake rock." His smile was crooked, charming despite the faint scar that ran along his left cheekbone. Some things never change. But everything had changed. Everything. I first met Daniel Morrison when he was 14 and I was 31, a new bride moving into the white colonial on Maple Street with my husband Michael and our 3-year-old daughter Emma. He'd been a gangly teenager back then, all elbows and attitude, mowing lawns for summer cash. Michael had hired him to help with our moving boxes, and I remembered thinking he was polite but distant, like he was already planning his escape from our quiet suburb. Now he stood in my kitchen, filling the space in a way that made the room feel smaller. He wore a simple black t-shirt that stretched across shoulders that had definitely not belonged to that teenage boy, and when he reached up to push a hand through his dark hair, I caught a glimpse of a tattoo creeping up his forearm, coordinates maybe, or a date. "My mom mentioned you needed help with groceries," he said. "I was visiting and thought I'd grab them from your car." "Your mother talks too much," I said, but without heat. Patricia Morrison had been my lifeline after Michael died. She'd brought casseroles and company, sat with me through the endless nights when grief felt like drowning. "But thank you. You didn't have to." "I know." He leaned against my counter, studying me with an intensity that made me want to check if I had toothpaste on my face. "You look good, Catherine. Different but good." "Different how?" "Stronger." He said it simply, like stating a fact. "Grief either breaks people or forges them. You look forged." I didn't know what to say to that. I'd spent 3 years feeling like I was barely surviving, not forging anything. I'd poured everything into Emma, into keeping our house, into pretending I was fine. My long hair had more silver threading through the blonde now, though I kept it healthy, silky, my one vanity. I exercised obsessively, not for my figure but because it was the only thing that quieted my mind. "You look different too," I finally said. "Less angry." He laughed, and it transformed his face from intimidating to almost boyish. "I was an angry kid, wasn't I? I think I told you once that your garden was aggressively cheerful. You told me my roses were a cry for help disguised as landscaping. To be fair, you had 47 rose bushes. That's either dedication or obsession. It's called therapy that doesn't charge $200 an hour." His smile widened and something flickered in his gray eyes. "Appreciation, maybe." "Sharp as ever, Mrs. Weston." "Catherine," I corrected automatically. "I think we're past the formalities, considering you broke into my house. I used a key. That's entering, not breaking. Semantics from a man who used to steal my apples. I was hungry and your tree hung over the property line. That's legally gray area at best." I found myself laughing, actually laughing for the first time in weeks. Months maybe. It felt strange, like a muscle I'd forgotten how to use. Daniel watched me with that same intensity, and I realized suddenly how close we were standing, how the kitchen felt too warm, how his presence was awakening something in me I tried very hard to bury. Then I remembered the pregnancy test upstairs and everything crashed back. "Are you okay?" Daniel's brow furrowed. "You just went somewhere else." I'm fine. The lie tasted stale. Just tired. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his face, but he didn't push. I should let you rest. But my mom's having a thing on Saturday. Neighborhood barbecue. She wanted me to personally invite you and Emma. Emma, my 17-year-old daughter who was apparently hiding a secret that would change both our lives forever. I'll think about it, I managed. After he left, I stood in my kitchen for a long time, staring at the groceries he'd neatly arranged. Then I went upstairs, retrieved the pregnancy test box from Emma's trash, and waited for my daughter to come home. If you're already feeling invested in Catherine's story, that like button is right there. It helps more than you know. Emma came through the door at 4:15, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her long blonde hair, Michael's hair, pulled into a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted, pale in a way that I now recognized with sickening clarity. Mom! She stopped short when she saw me sitting at the kitchen table. Why are you home? I thought you had that work thing. It got canceled. Another lie. I'd called in sick after finding the test. Sit down, sweetheart. I have homework. Emma. My voice cracked. Please. She sat. Her hands were shaking. She knew. I placed the pregnancy test box on the table between us, and my beautiful, brilliant daughter's face crumpled like paper. How long have you known? I asked softly. 2 weeks. Her voice was barely a whisper. I was going to tell you. I couldn't find the words. Whose is it? The silence stretched so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she said a name that made my blood turn to ice. Tyler Morrison. Daniel's nephew. Patricia's grandson. The boy next door, except not a boy. He was 19, a sophomore in college, home for the summer. Emma. I know what you're going to say. Tears streamed down her face. But I love him, Mom. We've been together for almost a year. We didn't mean for this to happen. A year. My daughter had been hiding a relationship for an entire year, and I'd been so consumed by my own grief, my own loneliness, that I'd missed every sign. What kind of mother was I? Does Tyler know? She nodded miserably. He wants me to keep it. He says he'll support me, that he loves me. He's 19. You were 20 when you had me. The words hit like a slap. She was right. I'd been 20, pregnant, terrified, and Michael had stepped up, had married me, had spent the next 23 years being the best husband and father anyone could ask for. But Michael had been different. Mature beyond his years, steady as a rock. Tyler Morrison was... Well, I didn't know Tyler Morrison. Not really. I knew he'd been trouble as a teenager, shoplifting, underage drinking, a brief stint in juvie that Patricia had tearfully confided to me over wine. But people changed, didn't they? Daniel had been angry and difficult too, and look at him now. I need to think, I said. We both need to think. There's nothing to think about. Emma's chin lifted with a defiance that was pure me. I'm keeping the baby. With or without your support. She went upstairs and slammed her door so hard the windows rattled. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Michael's old chair. I still thought of it as his, even after 3 years, and stared at our wedding photo on the mantel. He'd know what to do. He'd know how to handle this. But Michael was gone, and I was alone, and my daughter was pregnant with the child of a boy I didn't trust. Saturday came faster than I wanted. I almost didn't go to Patricia's barbecue, but avoiding my neighbors would only make things worse. Eventually, the truth would come out. It always did. I dressed carefully. A flowing summer dress in pale blue that I knew looked good against my fair skin, simple sandals, my hair loose down my back. I don't know why I bothered. Habit maybe. Or the small, guilty part of me that remembered Daniel's eyes on me in the kitchen. The Morrison backyard was already crowded when I arrived. Half the neighborhood had shown up. The Hendersons from 2 doors down, the Martinez family with their twins, old Mr. Chun who still tended his vegetable garden despite his arthritis. Patricia spotted me immediately and rushed over. Catherine, I'm so glad you came. She wrapped me in a hug that smelled like sunscreen and charcoal. Emma said she wasn't feeling well. Emma had claimed a headache and refused to leave her room. I couldn't exactly explain the real reason. Teenage dramatics. You remember how it was. Do I ever? Patricia laughed. but something flickered behind her eyes. Tyler's been moody too. I think there's something going around. I bet there is, I thought grimly. There's someone I want you to meet, Patricia continued, grabbing my arm. My brother's business partner, Richard. He's recently divorced, very handsome, and… Mom! Daniel appeared beside us, smoothly extracting me from his mother's grip. Stop trying to set up the entire neighborhood. Catherine, want to help me with the drinks? I would love to, I said, perhaps too emphatically. He led me away from his mother's matchmaking, and I could feel Patricia's knowing gaze on my back. We reached the drinks table, and Daniel handed me a glass of white wine without asking what I wanted. How did you know? My mom's been serving your Chardonnay at parties for years. You're consistent. He poured himself a beer. Also, you looked like you needed rescue. Your mother means well. My mother is a menace disguised as a sweet retired teacher. But he said it with affection. Richard is boring anyway. He golfs competitively and once spent 40 minutes telling me about his handicap. His golf handicap before you make a joke. I wasn't going to make a joke. You absolutely were. I could see it forming. I hid my smile behind my wine glass. You don't know me that well. I know you better than you think. He stepped closer and I caught his scent. Something clean and masculine like cedar and rain. I used to watch you when I was a kid. You were always so put together. Perfect hair, perfect house, perfect marriage. I hated it, honestly. It made me feel like even more of a mess. My life was never perfect. I know that now. His voice softened. After Mr. Weston died, I saw pictures. My mom would show me during video calls. You looked like a woman who'd lost a limb and was learning to walk again. My throat tightened. That's remarkably accurate. I'm good with words. One of my few skills. One of your few skills? I raised an eyebrow. What about breaking into people's houses? That's more of a hobby. I laughed again and he smiled like he'd won something. We stood there in the afternoon sun, surrounded by neighbors and normality, and I felt a connection I hadn't felt since Michael died. It was dangerous. Daniel was 14 years younger than me. He was my neighbor's son, and somewhere in this backyard was his nephew, who had gotten my daughter pregnant. The universe had a sick sense of humor. I found Tyler by the grill, helping his grandfather flip burgers. He was tall and good-looking in a boyish way, with his mother's blue eyes and his father's crooked nose. When he saw me approaching, something shifted in his expression. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Mrs. Weston. He straightened up. Can I talk to you? Privately. We walked to the far end of the yard, behind the old oak tree that had been there since before either of us was born. Tyler shoved his hands in his pockets and refused to meet my eyes. I love her, he said before I could speak. I know you think I'm just some stupid kid, but I love Emma more than anything. We didn't plan this, but I'm not going to abandon her. Pretty words. What's your plan? I'll transfer to a school here. Get a job. My Uncle Daniel said I could work for his company. Daniel knows. Tyler's face went pale. He figured it out. He saw Emma and me together a few weeks ago. He said he wouldn't tell anyone until we were ready. Another betrayal. Another secret kept from me. I felt my composure cracking. Does your grandmother know? Your parents? Not yet. We were going to tell everyone together. This week. Tyler finally looked at me, and I saw genuine anguish in his eyes. Please don't hate me, Mrs. Weston. I know I messed up, but I swear I'll make this right. Before I could respond, a scream shattered the afternoon peace. Right now, I want you to hit that subscribe button. The story's about to take a turn you won't see coming. We ran toward the sound and found Patricia on her knees beside the pool. Daniel was already in the water pulling someone out, a small body limp and pale. The Martinez twins. One of them had fallen in and no one had noticed. Daniel lifted the boy onto the concrete and immediately started CPR. His movements efficient and calm despite the chaos around us. Patricia was crying. Mrs. Martinez was screaming. Someone called 911. I watched Daniel work, compressing the tiny chest, breathing life into still lungs, and I thought about all the ways we fail each other. All the moments we look away. All the secrets we keep. The boy coughed. Water spurted from his mouth and he started to cry, the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Daniel rolled him onto his side, rubbing his back, murmuring reassurances until the paramedics arrived. The party dissolved after that. People went home, shaken and grateful it hadn't been worse. I stayed to help Patricia clean up, and Daniel stayed too, though he barely spoke. Whatever military training he'd had, whatever he'd seen overseas, it had prepared him for this. But it had also cost him something. "Thank you," I said quietly as we gathered plates in the empty backyard. "What you did. Anyone would have done it. Not everyone would have known how." He stopped, a stack of paper plates in his hands, and for a moment the mask slipped. I saw exhaustion and grief and something darker underneath. "I've lost people," he said. "In places I can't talk about. You learn to react or you learn to live with ghosts. How many ghosts do you have?" "Enough." He looked at me with those storm-gray eyes, and I felt something shift between us. But today wasn't about adding more. Today was about saving one. We finished cleaning in silence, but it was a different silence now. Charged. Intimate. The following week was chaos. Emma and Tyler told their families everything, and the fallout was complicated. Patricia cried, then hugged Emma, then cried some more. Tyler's father threatened to cut him off financially before his mother talked him down. My relationship with Emma oscillated between tense silence and tearful conversations at 2 a.m. Through it all, Daniel was there. Not intrusively, he didn't push or pry or offer unwanted advice. He just showed up, bringing groceries I hadn't asked for, fixing the fence post that had been broken for months, sitting with me on my porch in the evenings while I processed everything out loud. "You're surprisingly easy to talk to," I said one night, 3 glasses of wine making me braver than usual. "For someone who supposedly doesn't like people." "Who says I don't like people?" "Your mother. Your sister. That couple at the barbecue who tried to make small talk." He laughed softly. The crickets sang around us, and the stars were brilliant overhead. One advantage of suburban life. "I don't dislike people. I just prefer quality over quantity." "And I'm quality?" "Catherine." The way he said my name made something flutter in my chest. "You're the most interesting woman I've met in years. You're smart, you're funny, you're holding your entire world together through sheer force of will. And you look absolutely stunning doing it." I should have deflected, made a joke, changed the subject. Instead, I turned to face him, close enough to see the gold flecks in his gray eyes. "What are we doing here, Daniel?" "I don't know." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers were warm, gentle. "But I'd like to find out." This was wrong. I knew it was wrong. The age difference, the circumstances, the tangled mess of our families. But when had anything in my life gone according to plan? I leaned in close enough to feel his breath on my lips and whispered, "Want to taste my lips?" He froze. I watched his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed. "Catherine. They're called Bee's Kiss. It's a lip balm." I pulled the small tin from my pocket, holding it up between us with a mischievous smile. "Emma started a business making organic cosmetics. This is her bestseller. I'm supposed to give samples to everyone." Daniel stared at me for a long moment. Then he burst out laughing, real full laughter that made his whole body shake. "You are evil, Catherine Weston. I prefer playfully unpredictable. You almost gave me a heart attack. Your heart seems fine. Excellent, even based on recent evidence." I pressed the lip balm into his hand. "But seriously, try it. It smells like honey." He opened the tin and sniffed. "It does smell like honey." He looked at me with those eyes that saw too much. "Is this your way of testing if I'm interested in you or just interested in whatever we've been doing? Maybe. Is it working?" "Catherine." He set the lip balm down. "I've been interested in you since I was 17 years old, and you showed up to chaperone the homecoming dance in a red dress that made every boy in the room forget their dates existed. That dress was a mistake. Michael almost didn't let me out of the house. It wasn't a mistake. It was devastating." He moved closer. "I spent the next decade telling myself I was too young, you were too married, it was too inappropriate. Then I went overseas and almost died 3 times, and I learned that life is too short for anything. My heart was pounding. Daniel, I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm just telling you the truth. I've been waiting to tell you for 14 years. The weight of his confession hung between us. 14 years. Half of Emma's life. All of Michael's death. I don't know what I'm ready for, I whispered. My life is falling apart. My daughter is pregnant. I haven't been with anyone since Michael died. I know. I'm 45 years old. I know. I still dream about my husband. Catherine. He took my hand, pressed it against his chest where his heart beat steady and strong. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I just want a chance to be something new. I should have said no. Should have pulled away. Should have protected myself and my family from more complications. Instead, I kissed him. If this moment gave you butterflies, drop a comment below and tell me how you're feeling. I read every single one. The next month was the happiest and most terrifying of my life. Daniel and I didn't tell anyone about us. Not yet, not with everything else happening. We stole moments where we could. Early morning walks when the neighborhood was still sleeping. Late night conversations that sometimes led to kisses, sometimes to more. He was patient with my guilt, gentle with my grief, and devastating to my self-control. One evening, 2 weeks into our secret relationship, Daniel texted me to meet him at the old covered bridge outside town. The one where teenagers carved their initials and couples came to watch sunsets. I almost didn't go. It felt too romantic, too intentional, too much like admitting this was real. I went anyway. He was waiting when I arrived, leaning against the wooden railing with a picnic basket at his feet. The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, and for a moment I just stood there, watching him watch the water below. You came, he said without turning around. I almost didn't. I know. He finally looked at me, and his smile made my knees weak. That's why I brought bribery wine. Bribery wine? The expensive French kind you pretend not to like but always finish first. I laughed despite myself. You pay too much attention. Only to you. He held out his hand. Come here. I want to show you something. I took his hand, warm, calloused, steady, and let him lead me to the center of the bridge. Below us, the creek sparkled in the fading light. Above us, the first stars were appearing. Look. He pointed to a spot on the railing, weathered but still visible. 2 sets of initials. MW plus H. Michael Weston. Catherine Harper. We'd carved them here 24 years ago, the night he proposed. My breath caught. How did you? My mom told me once. Years ago, when I was being an insufferable teenager and complaining about how perfect your marriage was. Daniel's voice was soft. She said you and Mr. Weston came here on your first date. That he proposed here. That you came back every anniversary until he got too sick to make the trip. Tears pricked my eyes. Daniel, why would you bring me here? Because I wanted you to know that I'm not trying to erase him. He turned to face me fully, taking both my hands in his. I'm not trying to write over your story, Catherine. I'm asking if maybe there's room for a new chapter. I stared at him, this man who had somehow seen past my walls, past my grief, past all the reasons I'd convinced myself to stay alone. The sunset caught the planes of his face, softening his sharp features, making him look younger and somehow ancient at the same time. You're not what I expected, I whispered. Neither are you. He pulled me closer, and I went willingly, resting my head against his chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath my ear. I expected someone broken, someone who'd given up. Instead, I found the strongest woman I've ever known, hiding behind sarcasm and rose bushes. The sarcasm is a defense mechanism. I know. It's also incredibly attractive. I tilted my head up. You think my emotional armor is attractive? I think everything about you is attractive. His hand slid up my arms, leaving trails of warmth. But especially the way you're looking at me right now. How am I looking at you? Like you're deciding whether to kiss me or push me off this bridge. The night is young. Both are possible. He laughed and then he kissed me, soft at first, questioning, and then deeper when I responded. The world fell away. Emma's pregnancy progressed, and slowly, begrudgingly, I began to see Tyler differently. He transferred to a local college. Got a job at Daniel's security consulting firm. Showed up every day, did the work, proved he was more than his juvenile record. He reminds me of someone, Daniel said one evening as we watched Tyler help Emma carry nursery furniture into her room. Who? Me. At that age. Daniel's expression was distant. Angry at the world, desperate to prove everyone wrong. All I needed was someone to give me a chance. Is that why you hired him? Partly. Also, he's family now. Whether anyone likes it or not. I watched my daughter smile at the boy man. I corrected myself. Who would be the father of my grandchild? It wasn't the life I'd imagined for her. But maybe it didn't have to be a tragedy. I'm falling in love with you too, I said suddenly. Daniel turned to me, eyebrows raised. That's quite a statement, Catherine Weston. Usually you bury everything under 17 layers of sarcasm. I have 15 layers at most. You just told me you're falling in love with me while watching your pregnant daughter's boyfriend assemble a crib. I've never been conventional. He kissed me then, right there in the hallway where anyone could see. I didn't care. For the first time in 3 years I felt alive. But happiness, I should have remembered, is rarely permanent. Patricia Morrison had a stroke 2 weeks before Emma's due date. She survived, but barely. The next days were a blur of hospital visits and whispered prognosis. Daniel barely slept. He sat by his mother's bed for hours, holding her hand, talking to her even when the doctor said she couldn't hear. She was the only one who believed in me. He told me one night in the hospital cafeteria, his coffee growing cold. When I was a teenage disaster, when I enlisted, when I came back broken. She never gave up. She won't give up now. You don't know that. His voice cracked. Nobody knows that. I took his hand. Then we don't know. But we hope anyway. Patricia woke up 3 days later. Her speech was slurred. Her left side weakened, but she was alive. The first thing she said when she saw me by her bed was, "About time you two figured it out." The night before Emma's due date, I couldn't sleep. I stood in my garden at 2 a.m., barefoot in the cool grass, staring at the roses that had somehow survived another winter. I heard footsteps behind me and didn't turn around. Couldn't sleep either? Daniel's voice was warm in the darkness. Too much to think about. Tomorrow my daughter becomes a mother. I become a grandmother. I paused. I'm going to be a grandmother, Daniel. You're going to be magnificent. He came to stand beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. Though if you start baking cookies and calling yourself Nana, I might have concerns. I was thinking glamma. It's glamorous grandma. That's worse. That's significantly worse. I laughed and he wrapped his arms around me from behind, pulling me against his chest. We stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in darkness in each other. Dance with me, he murmured against my ear. There's no music. There's always music. He began to hum. Something slow and sweet, a melody I didn't recognize but somehow knew anyway. We swayed together in my garden, surrounded by roses that had witnessed 20 years of my marriage and 3 years of my grief. Where did you learn to dance? I asked. My mother. She said every man should know how to hold a woman properly. His hand spread warm against my lower back. I think she was preparing me for something. Someone. Your mother is a hopeless romantic. My mother is a tactical genius who's been trying to set us up for months. I smiled into the darkness. And you fell right into her trap. Gladly. He spun me gently, then pulled me close again. I'd fall into any trap that leads to you. That's either very sweet or very stalkerish. Bit of both. He dipped me suddenly and I gasped, clutching his shoulders. He held me there, suspended, his face inches from mine. I love you, Catherine Weston. Not despite your complications but because of them. Not instead of your past but alongside it. My eyes filled with tears. Happy ones for once. I love you too. I tried not to. I tried really hard. I know. He pulled me upright and kissed me softly. I'm very persuasive. And humble. Exceptionally humble. Ask anyone. We kept dancing until the first light of dawn crept over the horizon. painting everything in shades of pink and gold. And when Emma called at 6 a.m. to say her water had broken, we were already ready. Emma went into labor on a Thursday afternoon, during a thunderstorm that knocked out power to half the county. Tyler drove like a maniac to the hospital. Patricia watched from her wheelchair, tears streaming down her face. Daniel held my hand so tightly I thought my fingers would break. At 11:47 p.m., my granddaughter was born. 7 pounds 6 ounces with her mother's blonde hair and her father's blue eyes. They named her Grace for second chances, Emma said. For forgiveness. I held her in my arms and felt something in my chest unlock. All the grief, all the fear, all the years of just surviving, they fell away like old skin. Here was new life. New love. A future I hadn't dared to imagine. You're crying, Daniel murmured beside me. So are you. I'm allowed. I'm the great uncle. We're notoriously sentimental. I laughed through my tears. You're ridiculous. You love me anyway. I do. I looked up at him, this man who had waited 14 years, who had walked through fire and found his way back to me. I really do. 6 months later, on a spring afternoon in my rose garden, still 47 bushes, still aggressively cheerful, Daniel got down on one knee. You told me once that gardening was therapy, he said, holding out a ring that sparkled in the sunlight. I'm hoping marriage to me will be slightly less expensive. I don't know. You eat a lot, Catherine. And you still break into my house regularly. I use the key you gave me. Semantics. But I was crying again, happy tears this time, the kind that blurred everything into light. Yes, Daniel. Obviously yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, and from the kitchen window I heard Emma cheering, Grace babbling, Patricia laughing. Our families merged and messy and imperfect and absolutely wonderful. Here's what I learned in the end. Life doesn't give you perfect moments. It gives you complicated ones, tangled with grief and joy, fear and hope, endings and beginnings all wrapped together. You can spend years waiting for the pain to fade, or you can plant roses in the middle of it and watch something beautiful grow. The neighbor's son helped carry my groceries that day, and yes, I asked if he wanted to taste my lips. But what I was really asking, I think, was whether I was ready to live again. The answer was yes. It's always yes. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late for love. And if you haven't already, subscribe to join our community. We're all about stories that remind us what matters. Drop a comment below telling me about your own second chance. I can't wait to read your stories.